Всем бобра, дамы и господа. Вчера в 22 часа разработчики вышли на стрим и показали нам всю карту, рассказали про все новинки. Видеоролик довольно долгий, но я думаю, это того стоит, особенно в преддверии столь долгожданного ожидания новой карты. Вы можете посмотреть ее вместе с разработчиками. На видео они показали, что теперь дальность ультимейта Патфайндера будет указываться и какая-то история там с Лайфа. То есть, в принципе, это в патчноуте не было, но теперь вы знаете, что немножечко дополнили способности Лайфа и Патфайндера. По крайней мере, это стало немножечко удобно. Ну что ж, оставляю вас на часик практически уединения со столь замечательной, интересной и прям очень красивой картой. Это того стоит.
I'll kick it off because this is so the map is called Broken Moon. Is that what it is?
Yes.
So can you tell us just a little bit about like the lore behind the map and how it came to be?
Sure. Back after season 8, Rand, who is our designer on Mayhem, started working on the next map. We pitched a few ideas. We started playing with the idea of a moon and snowballed from there because we knew in season 10 Seer was coming, and there was this whole story about his prophecy. And it just started, all pieces started coming together. We always imagined, like, what is it that, we knew that the moon got hit and it affected Boreas, but what would the aftermath be? Well, how did they live with that? So the moon here represents all the work that's been going on since Seer was born. So it's about 26 years in the making. A lunar expedition was sent to the moon to survey all the damage. They knew there was a lot of work to be done, but before they could bring people to the moon to fix things, they needed to make it habitable. So they brought science departments up here to create a terraformer and atmosphere station. So you can see the pink sky, like an artificial atmosphere that was created. And this colony was formed called the Colony of Hope, and it's on the moon Cleo. Workers were able to start coming here, and we've got the promenade, which you can see across from the terraformer, this big giant wall. Those are apartments where most of the workers lived, and there's some homes scattered about the moon as well. And these people work here. They're all kind of pitching in to try to fix the damage and save their planet. Now, along the way, we've got things like, private industry have come here as well to increase funding because it's very expensive to try to fix the moon. Kind of all segued into what's happening now, which is the Apex Games have arrived. Someone struck a deal with Eduardo Silva in exchange for funding to help save their planet. They allowed the game to come on the moon and become the next arena.
We can just talk about this POI really quick. So this is the terraformer. This is what Ed was talking about with how they were starting to terraform the moon. So this is the actual POI that is doing the terraforming. You can see there's like stuff coming out of the top. It's generating an atmosphere. It's spinning around, trying to create a habitable atmosphere. There's this like spiraling water underneath here that further helps kind of sell that idea. And when it comes to gameplay, we think this is actually going to be a pretty highly contested POI. It is fairly central in the map. It's not too big, but it does support, like, we'd say about 2 to 3 teams kind of comfortably. And from here, you can really kind of see and get a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of like land marking. So if you're like up top, you can actually get This is like the sweet spot. You can actually get up here, but it's kind of hard to stay up here for too long. You can get like right on the edge.
Oh, really?
We don't want you going too high up, but you can get on the edge so you can get a good view. And you can kind of see there's like that big wall, that big blue and white wall in the distance. That's the promenade. So we can go over there later. But then you can start looking around and you can see other landmarks over the rocks and over in the horizon. Like to the south, there's one of the Atmos stations. You have another Atmos station northeast, and then there's a few other POIs you can kind of see peeking over the horizon through here. But you can see the terraformer has these like, there's these arms that link up to different directions, sort of like different cardinal directions you can head through the map. And these are really good points to defend when people are trying to come up. So we find that the terraformer is this like kind of king of the hill sort of situation, but you can't really defend it all from one spot. You kind of have to spread out a little bit. You can slide down these arms. This is really fun. You can slide down the interior of the arms as well. And then there's just like, yeah, these interior spots with the legs. You can see, like, to Ed's point, we're trying to sell the story through artwork as well. So this, like, there's a lot of posters and little visual storytelling pieces across the map that you'll see. Yeah, and then this is just another way back up to the top. There's a vertical zip line here. Yeah, and then all three arms are kind of similar, and that's just kind of the loop. And then you can, the other thing that's kind of unique about this POI is there's an exterior zip rail that just sort of like wings you around the perimeter of it. So you can use that to kind of rotate around a little quicker and get from one leg to the other.
Fun fact, the terraformer is named Bertha because it's Project Rebirth was the name of the project. One of our artists desperately wants to call this the flush because of the swirling water at the bottom. But yeah.
Bit of a toilet bowl down there.
Yeah.
But it's fun. You'll find if you're trying to control the top, you'll kind of like jump down into the water below to try to escape or get away. That happens a lot. Actually, we could probably just go through one of these. These are our lunar. Well, Ed, do you want to talk about these?
Yeah, so this represents the CRC and the NAB. So we got the Clio Recovery Council and the National Alliance of Boreas. They were the ones that kind of co-funded this mission to the moon. And these were the first kind of astronauts that came to survey the damage. They set up these camps. You'll see some astronaut suits here back when they were having to explore the moon before the atmosphere was created. So yeah, throughout you'll see a few of these camps, and they're really fun little areas to explore.
Yeah, so those are all, they're kind of like these pieces that we put together to make a bunch of different variations of those buildings. So it's like a style that you need to get used to and learn. But they're all over the map, and they all play. Some of them play really similarly because they're the same configurations, but other ones are in different configurations. So we're coming up to the promenade. This is a really popular POI because it is sort of this really centralized choke point, and a lot of traffic flows through here. So there's a few ways up into the promenade. There's ramps on the sides, but you can also take these zip lines.
And this is where the people of Clio would find their basic supplies. It's like their general stores, their pharmacies. It's basically how they can survive up here. This is where they get their everyday goods as they live upstairs in the apartments.
Yeah, you can see, continuing on theme, this one also has a unique zip rail about it, so you can kind of zip above the action, take you through these doors. That you can't get on them everywhere unless you're like, someone like Pатfainder, where he can grapple to the zip rail, and other legends that can get the height, but there's certain starting points for the zip rail as well. Entrances and exits, a bunch of different ways in and out. So it's really good this area is really good for defensive legends. And there's some of these kind of narrow hallways around as well that prove for really good flanks just to push through these doors. Yeah, so we find ourselves a lot of the times in playtesting, the big question arises, do we go through the promenade or do we go around it? Because going through the promenade, if there's a team in there, it's like it's a pretty good choice you have to make. Like, can you squeeze through, or are you gonna actually have to fight someone? There's kind of a sneaking route as well under the promenade. Over here, there's two pathways you can take to underneath it just to try to avoid some of the action, but kind of put your back at risk. as well. So when you're coming through here, you really have to watch. You really have to watch your back and make sure there isn't a team above you. Where else should we go, Ed? I guess we could go to the core. That's another major POI. So
we could go through some of these houses.
Oh yeah, for sure. We can go to these houses here. Yeah, Ed, why don't you talk about these buildings?
Sure. So these are, I guess, government signed housing for the workers. They're quite swanky. I guess they got to make it worthwhile for them to come all the way to the moon to give up their lives on Boreas. But Boreas, we established from Sears' lore trailer, has a very dominant African culture. So we kind of brought in a few influences to make it, feel like there's some of that here as well. But yeah, it's got all the amenities needed to survive on the moon.
Yeah, so from a gameplay standpoint, these buildings, I think there's two different ones. There's like a smaller one and a bigger one. But these buildings are pretty common, and these are like destination points we use a lot for the zip rails. So you'll see over here, I'll show you something that's kind of cool about these. Yeah, so this is the other variation. It's a little larger. These are really, really fun to defend because they have these like posts here, these kind of post up points on the edges here where you can kind of just watch down the zip rail line to make sure another team isn't trying to run up on you. One of the fun things about this is actually just if you come in it on a zip rail, you can get a good like momentum slide coming in through those doors. And so when you're coming into a good point, we find ourselves doing that all the time. And you kind of like when the door is closed, you just slide in and like crash through the door. It's a really good feeling. But I think we'll head to the core next. That's another major POI. These bridges, also very, very popular positions for fighting. They create like a good hold for your team.
So the core is basically the energy source for the moon. They built this to power all of their various scientific endeavors. We see little yellow power stations throughout. It's kind of where they distribute some of that energy that they stored. So you'll find them throughout the map, but this is where all the power is generated.
These are our funky alien plants as well.
Was there anything that kind of inspired you guys with the style of art here or the visual style that you wanted to go with for this map?
Well, I've mentioned this in a few interviews. So one of the strongest themes was heaven and hell, right? We've done other themes like fire and ice and tropical kind of settings, but for this one, we were going to be on a barren moon and we wanted to contrast that with the lush terraformed areas. So heaven and hell was kind of the motifs that was pushing on the team, and especially the grassy lush side was inspired by English gardens and Monet paintings, like that soft pastel sky. And you'll see Bionomics later has these giant lily pads and really lush flowers. So that really wanted to contrast against what we knew was going to be more of a drabber kind of gray alien looking place. We knew that we couldn't have too much of that because you want people to relate to the areas that they're going to be playing in for a long period of time, right? If you're going to spend hours in this, you don't want them to get tired or fatigued by too much of a gray ambiance. So we do have some of that moon vibe, but then we contrasted that with more of an earthly terraformed half of the moon.
In the middle here, the honeypot, as we call it, so like the best loot's going to be here in the top middle. It's one of the sort of harder places to get to. If you look up, you can see there's actually a hole. So you can skydive into the top here. If you get a good plane path, you can skydive right through that hole. It's also kind of, we internally, we call it like a blender. So if you do land on the edge, those arms will kind of kick you down as well. So you can use that for like a speed drop if you want. And then, yeah, it's kind of like, it's a tricky spot to defend from the middle because you kind of always have to watch every direction, and these things are rotating. You don't really know where people can come from. So we find like people defend a lot of these arms and kind of hold up in here. These are pretty tricky spots to get people out of. The other thing that's really unique about this point of interest is the fan below here. So you'll see this like blue energy. You can actually jump into it. It'll push you up, and you can use that to escape, to enter. You can use it to just kind of like rotate around the POI if you want, but it does put you at a disadvantage, and you are a bit of a sitting duck. So similar mechanic to what you guys might have seen on World's Edge with the updraft, but this one doesn't damage you. And so you'll see that this mechanic across the map in a few spots, this blue glow. Anytime you see a spot like that, that'll actually lift you in the air. So we put those in spots where we like naturally it would kind of be a death pit, like you just jump in there and die, but we decided we didn't really want that. So we put this sort of like safety net in. So it's sort of a way that you're just not going to immediately die.
This map seems quite large.
So it's roughly the size of World's Edge. It's a little bit bigger than World's Edge, but you will find that once you have like a full game of 60 and people are just ripping around on the zip rails, that it actually feels kind of tight and a little quick. So the zip rails were like one of our ideas for getting rotations, like quicker rotations. And if you're kind of out of the action and you're in sort of like a downbeat and you're looking for action, this is one of the levers you can use to kind of close the distances and stuff like that. So this is a launch pad. It'll take you up to a zip rail so you can grab it. There's a couple of those. You can see on your mini map, it looks sort of like a buckle or like a rectangle with a dot. Those are all the pads that take you on the rails. And the rails are identified by the red line.
The red lines. I was going to say, there's no balloons in this map, kind of like Storm Point?
There's one balloon.
Yeah, there's one balloon right now. And that's at Eternal Gardens, which we'll go to next.
Cool.
We'll head this way to Stasis.
Well, everyone's at Alpha Base. Should we just look at Alpha Base?
Oh, yeah, I guess we should. Yeah, so you can take that zip rail into Alpha Base there below.
So this is basically the first location where they landed on the moon. It's a giant crater. This is where they set up their first camp. It's the largest lunar camp. And it's just this network of these lunar habitat.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a figure 8 POI. There's a good like figure 8 loop going through it, and this is sort of what we call like a town POI. So it's a bit smaller. It doesn't support too many squads, and it's just a good place to rumble, to be honest. You have these good like loot circuits that you can do through these buildings and just kind of rip through them in a loop and pick up all the loot. You can get on top of these as well, obviously, and these are really good positions to just kind of sit up and get a lay of the land when you're on top of these buildings.
So you can climb all these buildings like all the way.
Yeah, a big thing for us is verticality and making sure that if it looks like somewhere you can go, that you can go there. Yeah, so this is one of the longer lines in the game for the zip rails. And it connects all the way from Alpha Base to Stasis.
How fast do these things go compared to zip lines?
Will you tell me how? Do they feel faster?
Much faster, they seem.
It's hard to get my head around.
It feels like they accelerate.
They do.
Yeah, so they take your basically like inertia and momentum into account. So like if it's going up or down, if you're climbing up, it'll slow down, and if you're going downhill, it'll speed up. But it eventually maxes out.
Here we're approaching the stasis net in what we call the failed forest. So the idea is that the terraformer, you'll see like a radius of what's been terraformed from that central building, and parts of the map didn't really take. And this is one of those areas that didn't quite take. So it's a bit of a creepier forest. And the stasis net is one of the first things they set up here to contain all the rock debris that you can see in the skybox, to prevent it from crashing into Boreas as well as crashing back onto the moon. So that's that grid you see up there. If anything were to happen to that, big damage happening.
This is one of my favorite POIs on the map. I really like it. It's got a good sort of like a good way to contest the area. So if we head towards the dish here, you can see that you can actually get on top of this thing. And so it gives you like a nice 360 spot, but you don't have a lot of cover up there. There's a little bit, but we find a lot of teams they'll kind of sit up there and they'll get into some pokey fights with other teams trying to enter the area. So from up here, you have a pretty good view at some of the chokes coming into the area, like the one over there. To the east, you can see that special choke there that leads to Eternal Gardens, which we can go to next. But anytime you sort of see that kind of fencing or style, you know that it's leading to Eternal Gardens. But yeah, you can kind of just loop around on this thing and look for people. You can also go underneath it. So there's a little hidden bowl underneath this thing.
Oh, yeah.
That also has a central zip that'll take you back in. So we've had some like really fun endings at this point of interest. It's one of my favorites. You just have teams like trying to survive in here, looking out the windows, trying to like communicate and say which door they're coming in and stuff like that. So it's, yeah, we can move on. We can head on to Eternal Acres here.
And it's supposed to be like a memorial garden for, you know, the people of Boreas, the people that are here on the moon, to kind of remember that day that the moon got hit. So yeah, there's beautiful topiaries, strange creatures, beautiful gardens here. Central Tower actually has the one zip balloon on the map. And inside is quite a lovely kind of almost like a tranquil meditation spot for people that are, you know, when they get off work, they can come here and chill out.
Yeah, so we can go in the bottom. So I call it a fairy pool down here. I don't know if Ed has a better word for it, but I call it the fairy pool. But yeah, it's just a really nice stained glass thing with god rays coming in and everything. It just looks gorgeous. But there's some really good loot down here. There's also a vertical zip line, 2 vertical zip lines that take you back up to the top. So when you're landing, this is a good place to land, just on this central area here. And then yeah, you can take this balloon that takes you up through the stained glass, which is a super cool moment, and that'll just eject you over top of the whole thing. So you can kind of pick like where you want to move to, but you can't get too far.
Oh, this POI is just like so gorgeous. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was one of the first ones we actually tackled. It kind of represented that heavenly side.
Yeah.
Which who designed the little sculptures though, like the little these little animal sculptures that in the.
So Aaron, one of our concept artists, did a great job with those. You know, I think we did 4 or 5 of them. Maybe one of them didn't make the cut, but they're really cute. We made it so that you can get underneath them and through them, because some of those spots felt pretty tight, but you should be able to get through.
And then yeah, you can enter into the divide. So this is another town POI. It's sort of like two towns facing each other with bridges in the middle, and then there is a zip rail connection that loops around. So if you're trying to get, you know, a quick flank on the other team or something, you can use the zip rails to come around and attack from the sides instead of face on. And then also, yes, there's the blue energy down here, the updraft energy that'll push you up if you jump into it.
And the vibe we were going for with this POI was that this town was once connected. It was once, you know, it probably had a main street down the middle. And then just to show the kind of fragility of the moon, it got split in half. These bridges have been set up to kind of almost hold the pieces together, but then that explains why we see the blue glow and the updraft happening there. So it's one of my favorite POIs. I think it's going to create some cool kind of side to side, you know, middle building to middle building kind of sniping fest, if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, we find a lot of the times you'll have just one team on either side, and then they're trying to sort of figure out how to cross the gap. You know, if they use abilities, or if they just run across the bridge, or if they use the rail to go around from the side. So there's a lot of interesting things and interesting ways you can kind of attack.
Was that like your intent when you're designing a lot of these POIs, like to potentially have them like have double usage? Like it's in the BR, but it's also potentially useful in the future?
Yeah, we think about that. It's in the back of our mind consistently. But one of the things that we just make sure is like, you know, if we look at this, it's like, yes, maybe this could work for gun run or something like that, but we make sure that it works for the BR first and foremost. The way this town is laid out, this is just like a really classic kind of level design, you know, technique, which is just like you put a big pit and 2 bridges, and you create these. You just really create these really strong front lines as a result. You can see here, actually, there's a waterfall down here that's being affected by the updraft gravity and the energy down there. So it's kind of like not behaving exactly like a waterfall should. That's just like a little, what do we call that thing, Ed? Did it have a name?
Waterfall?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think it was just supposed to like evaporate, right? Like it's just
Oh yeah. Okay.
it's supposed to flow upwards.
So it's kind of, the water's kind of getting pushed up by the energy there. So it's just a cool little thing.
And the surrounding biome, you know, we were kind of going for white meadows. So a lot of white kind of lavender flowers. We called it the cloud forest. You'll see these big white mushrooms in the cliffs themselves. Just trying to separate the various POIs so they don't all have, you know, I think we have more than 4 or 5 biomes on this map. Slight variations, but it's just, flowers and color were ways to get that variety for us. And we're in bionomics now, which is probably the one that's closest inspired to like a Monet painting. It's what I was giving as reference for the ponds and the lily pads, beautiful pink sky.
Yeah, so you'll see we have some of these circular buildings here now. There's a few of these across the map, but they're the most prominent here in bionomics and in another point of interest called cultivation. And they're just really fun. They have a good circuit just around the outside of them, and then there's a good core to them where you can sit and defend. You can also get on the rooftops and use those to defend. They're actually really strong defensible positions, just sort of sitting in the donut, in the middle of the donut. So it can be pretty hard to weed teams out of there. Big landmark for this one, so you're in bionomics, obviously, is like the water and the lily pads and everything, but there's a huge pink tree in the center. It's a little trenchy, I'd say. That's kind of like part of this point of interest is trenchy. It's got these open spaces you need to cross. Has some of these wooden these roots that are these arches, so you can kind of use them as vertical cover as well. To protect yourself from above. And then there's a bunch of little secret tunnels and stuff like that in between the bridges and things like that you'll have to find. But lots of paths in and out. And this is one of those points of interest that connect directly back to Terraformer. So you can see on the map there's a choke that'll lead you directly back to Terraformer.
Just from a lens, so obviously you're thinking about game usage and obviously making these maps interesting from like a playstyle standpoint, and you're thinking about final circles. How much of the design is influenced by thought of how it's going to be used in competitive, or how it might be used in a high level ranked, and can we keep this because that'll be too strong? Is that kind of stuff you have to deal with? And if so, how have you dealt with it on this map?
Yeah, that's all part of balancing for sure. Sometimes we have a theory on what's going to be really strong and what we think is going to be really strong, and we test it against that in situations where we actually play test it. We find it's pretty hard to tell exactly how it's going to shake out, but once it gets in the live environment within the first day, community has tested it probably 1,000 times the amount that we will,
right,
just because of the sheer volume. We always look for points that are too strong or that are really powerful. I can give you guys an example over here with something that we had to sort of balance out. So we made these rounder buildings, and they have this kind of lip on them here. So this is one of the strongest defensible positions that we find that we've created in this area. So you can sort of sit on the lip, you can go over the lip, and and so one of the things that was making this sort of more powerful was actually the grass on top. So the grass on top was really high and really visible, and so that was one of the things where we were just there's too much grass up here. We need to pull this back a bit so that hide behind this thing and also hide in the grass. But we find if you have a team in here that's defending it, it's definitely a strong position, but there's many of these, so you can have a bunch of teams kind of hold up in each one, poking at each other and stuff like that. But eventually you're going to have to come out of your position.
That was an awesome example.
So we have 2 Atmos stations on this map. This is Atmos Station A, and the other one we call backup in case this one were to go down. Well, the terraformer is what kind of seeded the area. This is what kind of created the breathable environment. It's quite a large POI, lots of areas to loot on the periphery. Yeah, so it's a good vertical POI. This is probably one of our tallest POIs, I'd say, are the Atmos stations. Really easy to land at. When you're landing, most people land up here. They go inside afterwards. Really good defensible position up here. You have really good height advantage, and really good places to defend if you're into sniping. If you get overrun, you can kind of go back to the center here and sort of bunker yourselves in here, but there are 4 ways in and there's vertical zips, so you have to kind of be mindful of that as well. The vertical zips, these will take you down to the bottom. They should also give you a good view of the exterior vertical zips in the front as well, so you can kind of tell if someone's trying to go up. Yeah, and you can just bunker yourselves in here pretty well. Just sort of do a nice loop, staying at the bottom, going back to the top, and vice versa. So it is pretty hard to get a team out of there, but there's lots of options to get out of there. You can go from the back. There's rails that take you pretty close from the back. There's a ramp at the back. There's lots of zip lines taking you up, and then of course all the legends and their abilities.
as well can kind of get people out of there. We've provided a lot of cover on the exterior too that provides some height cover, you know, so you can get in these shipping containers and kind of protect your head from snipers above and stuff like that. Good periphery. These bridges right here, these two bridges are unique to the Atmos stations. So these are really fun to fight in. There's some good windows, ways in and out. You can also get on top of the bridge, and then there's these panels here too that you can use to climb up onto the bridge.
This is cultivation.
Yeah.
So this is the sister POI to Bionomics. It's a little smaller than Bionomics, but this is definitely one of the sweatier points of interest on the map as well. A lot of people like to land here. Ed, do you want to talk a bit about cultivation?
Yeah, this is basically where they would have set up their farming and agriculture, kind of created the food for the food source for the moon, the people living here. You'll see that they've got these craters that they've turned into sources for some of their, kind of wrapped them up in tarps and filled it with water and used it to kind of farm, because the moon didn't really have a water source at the beginning. So this is kind of where they started. You'll see some crops around the edges of some of these. They probably bring these to the promenade to sell there. Kind of got a greenhouse vibe to it. A lot of foliage and vegetation growing on the walls.
Yeah, cultivation is like our moon farm POI. So you can see inside there's like these like UV lights and stuff under the ground that's keeping all the plants growing. Lots of plants, lots of harvesting, things like that. There's plotted farm plots on the outside and stuff like that. So in terms of just controlling it and stuff, again, it's like really these donut buildings, getting holed up in these donut buildings and trying to control them. But say the difference to this one is that there's a bit more sort of elevation around the perimeter in some spots. So when you're sitting in these buildings, there's a few spots where people can stand to sort of see you a lot more clearly. But yeah, it's a really intense POI, pretty fast POI. A lot of people land here to get those quick fights in the beginning and just contest the area. So we can head to the Foundry next, and we'll start looking at some of our industrial points of interest.
And so the Foundry represents, actually, it's one of the POIs that kind of connects Catalyst to the moon the most. So the Foundry is where they are processing ferrofluid. This is actually extracted from the geology of the moon itself. It's one of the things they discovered when they came to the moon, that the moon's surface was quite robust. They were able to find this ferrofluid, create it. They're actually using it to patch the moon. And if you look on the other side of the moon, in a skybox, you'll see ferrofluid literally holding pieces of rock together. Like they're trying to pull it and keep it from falling apart. And in the back of the Foundry, you'll see that they've got this tractor beam on a giant asteroid. And so this is what they do, is they kind of grab a rock, drag it into the upper area of the Foundry, and then they crush it and create and get to the minerals on the inside. This is where I think, Catalyst governed the ferrofluid and figured out how to harness it for herself.
You can also defend the Foundry from the upper platform. You can't go all the way to the top, but you can defend from this edge here. So again, another highly exposed location, but highly defendable. You get a lot of good sight lines for people coming into the Foundry, but once you get shot, there's really nowhere to go. You just kind of have to go down and escape.
And although the surrounding area is a little more barren, the POI itself is quite colorful with the greens and the blues. So we tried to make sure that the POIs had a lot of color to them if the biome itself was a bit more barren. Smaller yellow buildings, you'll see that they say worker station. These are scattered throughout the map as well. It's just like a common area for people to get supplies, or it's a break room or something like that. You'll see those throughout. So the next three are actually all kind of tied together. At some point, the work on the moon was maybe slowing down. People were getting a little disappointed with the progress, so the government had to figure out other ways to infuse money and effort. So they allowed private industry to set up shop on the moon. And we have this group called Kabindi Group, and they set up a shipbreaking operation. And so Breaker Wharf is where ships are brought to be taken apart. Then we have Dry Gulch, which is where a lot of the pieces end up. And then the production yard is kind of where they take some of those pieces and recycle them and repurpose them and send them back out. So this is quite a large POI. It harkens a bit back to Sorting Factory. It has a bit of that vibe. but it's got its own flavor as well.
It's got this sort of like small, not a full horseshoe, but like half a horseshoe. We'll say semicircle. I don't know what I'm getting at here, but it's got this nice loop through the center of it, like through the interior, and so there's a lot of like CQC fights in here and stuff that can happen, and you can kind of just like go through the space through the interior. You can also get on the roof of this thing. It's a pretty powerful position, pretty dominant position. But again, yeah, you're a bit of a sitting duck up here, and other teams can push you and come from a bunch of different ways. There's a few ways up. There's like ramps at the back. There's a zip line. There's a couple of climbs that you'll find to get on top of it. So there's a bunch of access points to kind of get a team out of there. One of the things that's interesting with this point of interest is way at the back. There's like a landing zone way at the back, and the landing zone way back here has some pretty solid loot. What's really interesting about this one is like when you're contesting this one, a lot of the times what I do is if I see a squad going to the back here, I actually go to those buildings right next to it. So yeah, so if a team lands there, right, you can kind of sit up here and and like kind of hold them back there from a more dominant position. So sometimes that's what I'll do is if I see someone landing back there, I won't go for the direct contest, and I'll actually land at these buildings. I think that's it. You can see like in the front too, there's a lot of like there's a land bridge out front there. It gives you some good over under. The zip rails all kind of head that way as well.
And again, even though it's more of our barren look, we added some strong pops of this rusty red that kind of fills in pools and has affected some of the vegetation. So it's just bringing in some more color as well in here.
We'll head on to Dry Gulch. We'll just keep going north towards Dry Gulch. Dry Gulch is another point of interest in this same kind of industrial family. I'd say in terms of just the team and the dev team, this is probably one of the more popular POIs. I'd say it's probably the most popular POI, especially in terms of like the members of the team that are really skilled at the game. This point of interest is really interesting, especially this spot right here. It's another kind of cyclical donut, carousel type shaped point of interest. That you can loop around. There's a zip line that cuts through. That's super fun. That's like one of my absolute favorite zip lines. And so you'll find a lot of people landing here. Some of the good loot is in the center. Dry Gulch is kind of like, that's like the main building, and then there's sort of like a sub building over here. So this one kind of, you can contest it, but it sort of divides teams up into two most of the time, where one team will get the good building over there, and the other one will get this one, which is still really good, but not as strong as of a position. You can also get on top of these as well. There's a few of these buildings in the game. I think we just call them our warehouse buildings. I can't really remember.
Yeah. I think what people like about this one is how asymmetrical it is compared to some of our other POIs on the map. That's a draw to people that are really skilled. They seem to like this one for that reason. So this POI is the one furthest from, obviously, the terraformer. It's the very edge of the map. So this is probably the most alien, barren looking section of the map. You'll see a lot of this kind of red mushroom fungus, creepy tendril thing all over the place. We've also got pools of blue, oily liquid around with some kind of, some of the grass has kind of turned purpley blue as well, as if it's been leaking into the vegetation. And then the POI itself is this very strong orange to help pop it from the terrain.
This is a ship breaking yard, right, Ed?
Yeah, this is where they bring the ships to break down and send it through the chain.
Are there loot ticks on the map? I feel like I hear one.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. I wasn't going crazy.
Yeah, we brought back the loot ticks from King's Canyon as our loot mechanism for this map.
They're all over the place when you're running around. You'll hear them squeaking and calling to you. Yeah, this map or this POI is very much sort of like a I don't know if many of you played the original Halo, but this one
I was gonna say
when our designer built it, I was like, this is very much like that Halo map with the two ships from the original Halo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
boarding action. Yeah, it's trying to get the name boarding action. So it's kind of like that, but it doesn't play like that. It just reminds me of that in spirit, I guess. But there's a bridge in the middle you can use to cross. There's a zip rail. So when you have two teams on either side, you can use like the zip rail in the center to cross and make a quick push. So when you're setting up, when you're trying to get a good defensive setup, it's always good to sort of keep an eye on that bridge, keep an eye on that zip rail, because when you take the zip rail across, it is really sheltered. So you sort of have to stand like right in front of it to get the most hits. If you're trying to do it from the side, they're gonna get onto your platform. Yeah, and then there's just lots of ways up, lots of little landing pads and stuff like that that you can land at. I usually land at the back, way at the back of this POI. I'd say it's probably one of the safer POIs to land at because it is quite edge. It's one of the sort of, I'd say it's probably the furthest away as well. And so it just brings that good balance that if you are looking for a safe point of interest to land at, this is one of them. And there's a couple of sneaky climbs that you might find running around it. Yeah, it looks like a few people already found them, but you can get on top of this as well. And so again, if there's like no cover up here other than just the edges and trying to hide yourself, you can get sniped from a bunch of different angles around. So it's not the strongest position. And yeah, again, there's no cover up here. So once you get shot, you pretty much have to jump off. I think that wraps up the tour. I think the only one we didn't go to was the backup Atmo, but you'll see if you look at both of those points of interest, they're very similar. So they are pretty similar to each other, similar building, similar kind of layout as well.
Now we're moving on to Daz's questions. First question is, how did the idea for zip rails come about?
This was an idea we were kicking around for a long time. Originally, it was an idea that was thought about for Olympus, I think, but we cut that pretty quickly because we didn't really like where it was heading. So we dug it up again because it was an idea that we were excited about, and we really thought about like, okay, well, what if we add these? Like, what is the point? Like we already have zip lines, we already have balloons, and all these other traversal things. So what are we actually trying to accomplish here? And the thing we kind of landed on was we wanted more connectivity between the edge POIs because we find a lot of the times rotating around the edge of the map is a lot slower, it takes a lot longer, and the ring usually pulls you away from the edge. So that was something that we thought was really, really interesting and a really good add that we could include with the map. So you'll see a lot of the zip rails are actually connected to the outer POIs and allow you to do much longer loops. But yeah, that's kind of where that seed was planted.
Awesome. All right, next question is, what are the major design goals for Broken Moon?
Yeah, so continuing with that same thread of zip rails, one of the goals that we were also thinking of was like, okay, well, how can we shake up kind of the traditional flow of a match? We find that once you land an edge POI, your squad's trajectory is usually pretty similar. Depending, of course, on which way the ring goes, but you're usually leaving those POIs in a similar way or from a similar trajectory. So we really wanted to think about like, well, what was a way that we could actually change your trajectory or change the way you're moving towards the ring quickly? And so that's where zip rails kind of came in as well. And we wanted to give people opportunities to not consistently have to rely on Valk in terms of like quick rotations and getting your squad out of harm's way. So zip rails was like another opportunity for that. So you might not always have to have Valk in your composition as a result.
Cool. And then next up is, how does this map reflect the team's philosophy on hot drops and third party?
Yeah, so our philosophy on hot drops is that they are healthy, but they get unhealthy when there's too many people dogpiling, because what that ends up doing is once everybody gets eliminated early on, fights last really long, and you get this weird pacing issue kind of in the middle of the game where you're looking for squads and it's like, well, because they all died of fragment or whatever. So it is part of the game, and it's something that we designed for sure. So something we tried with this map that was a little different was making a few additional larger POIs. There are other maps that do have larger POIs, but in this map I'd say we have more larger POIs than the other maps. And so one of the things we were trying was just giving people more space to land at a POI, less like contestable spots, more contestable spots right out of the gate. But it makes it sort of that the POI, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. With the larger POIs, you basically have time to get like your footing. So when you land, there are these hot spots where you can land to get the best loot, but there's also areas where you can land to get your footing, be more proactive about, do you want to engage in this fight or do you want to get away? And we found that with that, like not as many people dogpile all on the same POI because there is more space to share across the map. So we thought that that was a pretty effective change. And then as far as third partying, we think it's a core element of the game. We're not trying to remove third partying. We think it's a very viable strategy. And what we are trying to do though is think about ways to kind of soften it up. You know, if like people are choosing to third party, is there a way that you can actually defend against that? So balloons, you know, a balloon gives you free range, 360-degree control over how you want to drop on someone, where with like a zip line or a zip rail, we find that the points are a little bit more fixed, so you kind of have an idea of where people are coming from. So it's a similar philosophy behind the launchers or the cannons in Tropics that launch you on sort of a fixed trajectory.
Awesome. And finally, how would you say that rotation feels on this map?
I would say rotation feels good. There's a lot of opportunity for large macro rotations with the zip rails, and then a lot of the points of interest we've built with that cat and mouse gameplay in mind, where you know, if you get a shield break, there's still opportunity to get away or run away or hide or disengage for just enough time to heal. So that's really important to us in our designs.